Welcome to the Man of Recaps. Survivor Season 40 is bringing back 20 previous winners. Who were all these people? You probably forgot most of them, so here's the quick refresher you need to be ready for Winners at War. The first returning winner is Ethan from way back in Season 3, Survivor Africa. Watching that was crazy. It was tough back then. The modern Survivor seasons in Fiji are relaxing vacations comparatively. Ethan's just a really good dude. He used his winnings to start a youth soccer charity and has later battled and survived cancer. He made a close alliance with Lex, who was the master strategist running most of the game, but that made him the biggest threat, so near the end he was voted out, putting Ethan into the final two. And because everyone generally liked him, the jury voted him sole survivor. Next up is Sandra, the only person to ever win twice. Sandra's greatest strength is probably her ability to read social situations. She always knows what's up. In Pearl Islands, she flew under the radar, always making sure to be on the right side of the votes. She made it to the final two against Lillian, who theoretically had a great story coming back from Exile Island, but no one liked her, so Sandra won in a landslide. Next up is Amber, winner of Season 8 All-Stars. This was the first season where they brought back all returning players, and the biggest story is the romance between Amber and Boston Rob. These two formed an alliance day one that quickly turned into a crush, which quickly turned into a real romance, culminating when Rob proposed at the live finale. Even though being a showmance put a target on both of their backs, against all odds, Amber and Rob managed to get to the final two. But the jury was mad at Rob for basically voting them all out, so they awarded the win to Amber. She and Rob are on separate tribes this time, and she's ready to prove that she earned her victory. Next up is Danny of Survivor Guatemala. She was in the Minority Alliance going into the merge, but at a Survivor auction, something they haven't had in a long time, she bought an advantage for the next immunity challenge, which she won. After that, she played well, won her way to the final two against returning player Stephanie. Stephanie was in control for most of the game, and so the jury saw her as the bad guy that voted them out, awarded the win to Danny. Next is Yule, the winner of Season 13, where they divided into 4 tribes based on race. Bold move, CBS, but it actually made for a really cool, interesting season. Yule's an all-around champion, physically fit, very smart guy, and super charismatic. After tribe swaps and mutinies, he ended up on a 4-person tribe that seemed to be on the outs. But one of the 4 was Ozzy, one of the biggest challenge threats in Survivor history. Between Ozzy and Yule, those 4 won every challenge after that. Yule came to the final 2 against Ozzy, one of the biggest fan favorites ever. It was a very close vote, but in the end, the jury respected Yule's strategy more than Ozzy's challenge dominance and gave him the win. Next up is Parvati, another Survivor legend. She came back to win Season 16 Fans vs. Favorites. She uses her good looks, charm, and flirtatious nature to manipulate people. Parvati dominated the game with her woman's alliance. By the time the boys realized what was happening, it was too late. There was only one left. In one of the most famously dumb moves in Survivor history, Erik won immunity, but the girls convinced him to give it to one of them and immediately voted him out. Parvati came back again for Heroes vs. Villains and made it to the final 3, but it was actually Sandra who got her second win. She joined the Good Villains Alliance with Boston Rob, who she was just back on with as a mentor in Island of the Idols. But the Bad Villains Alliance of Russell and Parvati took over, voted all of them out. Sandra was the last woman standing. So at the end, she was sitting next to Russell, maybe the biggest villain ever, and Parvati, who no one wanted to win. So they gave it to Sandra, and against all odds, a previous winner won again. In Season 22, Redemption Island, Boston Rob finally won. Redemption Island brought back Rob and Russell, the 2 opposing leaders of the villains tribe. Russell got the best of Rob last season, but this time his tribe knew not to trust him at all and voted him out. Rob, meanwhile, super likable, everyone knows he's amazing at the game and wanted to be in his alliance. In the end, everything worked out exactly as he planned. He went to the final 3 with a really unlikable dude and a girl who hadn't done much except follow Rob's orders. So in a landslide vote, Boston Rob finally got a win. Sophie was the winner of Season 23, South Pacific. This season seemed like Ozzy's to win. Redemption Island was in play, where if you're voted out, you go there and do a challenge against the next person voted to stay. Ozzy, being a challenge master, won every single challenge, living by himself on Redemption Island for a long time until finally making it back in for the final 4. Sophie, meanwhile, is a real smart girl, a med student who flew under the radar. In the final immunity challenge, Ozzy was ahead in the physical stuff, but at the puzzle, she pulled ahead and beat him. Next is Kim from season 24, One World. That's the one where they split the tribes men versus women, but had them live at the same camp. Kim was a dominant force this season. She's generally really likable, good at strategy, and won 4 of the last 5 immunity challenges, where the jury's like, yeah, you're the winner. Denise, the sex therapist, won season 25, the Philippines. The big story this season is how Denise's tribe lost every single challenge at the beginning. Being physically strong and really friendly, she was able to not get voted out and make it to the merge. As the first Survivor player to go to every single tribal council, being in danger week after week, yet somehow making it to the end, the jury gave her the win. Winner of season 27, the first blood versus water, was Tyson. In Heroes vs. Villain, he famously got himself voted out with a boneheaded move. In Blood vs. Water, though, his strategy was a lot better. His girlfriend was voted off the other tribe very early on, leaving him without an ally after the merge. But he did a great job putting together an alliance of other single people. So between that, winning challenges, and finding idols, the jury gave him the win. Next up is Tony. He won season 28, which was Brain vs. Brawn vs. Beauty. And Tony's legendary because this dude played hard. Probably his most famous antic is his spy shack. The water well is where people meet up and talk strategy away from prying ears. So Tony took a bunch of branches and stuff and built a little spy shack right next to it where he would listen in on everything. When it came down to the end, Tony was clearly the biggest threat to win, but he was a master of finding hidden immunity idols. In the final 4, Tony was finally vulnerable, but pulled out an excellent trick. He had kept an idol from before that was expired, but nobody else knew that, so he proudly wore it around his neck at tribal council. No one bothered to vote for him. Next is Natalie from season 29, the second Blood vs. Water, but on the other tribe, her sister was the first person voted out, forcing Natalie to really bring it. Notably, she made it to the end without a vote ever being cast for her. She had a tight alliance with Jeremy, who came back to win season 31, Second Chances. Jeremy's a Boston firefighter, really fit guy, and extremely likable. They did a ton of tribe swaps this season, so instead of permanent alliances, there was a lot of talk of voting blocks. In the final 4, his biggest competitor was Kelly Wentworth, another great Survivor player. She had a great story of being on the bottom the whole time and fighting her way here, but in the end he won the final immunity challenge, sending her home and winning with a unanimous vote. Season 32 was won by Michele. It was another Brain vs. Brawn vs. Beauty, and Michele is Beauty. The Beauty tribe did great, actually. Michele never went to tribal council before the merge. She crucially won the final immunity challenge when she needed to, which also came with a crazy advantage to vote out one of the jury. In the end, Michele sat with Aubrey and Ty, who would both come back and become well-known Survivor players. But at the time, the jury respected Michele's game more than either of theirs and gave her the win. Season 33 was the famous Millennials vs. Gen X, and a millennial took the win, Adam. Adam's a really nice guy. His strength is his heart. In fact, Adam's big story this season was his mother, who was very sick with cancer. The season was largely dominated by David, the neurotic screenwriter who came back for Edge of Extinction. In the final 4, though, Adam was able to get David voted out, so in the final tribal council, the jury voted for Adam unanimously. Season 34 was Game Changers, bringing back some of the best players Survivor's ever seen, and the one who rose to win was Sarah. She played originally in Tony's season on the Brawn tribe, and they actually bonded because she's also a cop. She had a great strategy this season of playing both sides, being a big swing vote between alliances. Near the end, another player told Sarah about a legacy advantage she have, then to gain trust, she said, if I get voted out, I'll will it to you. But Sarah immediately voted her out while making it seem like she wasn't in on it. So thinking Sarah was her best ally left in the game, she willed her the legacy advantage, and that helped her get to the final 3. Next is Ben from season 35, Heroes vs. Healers vs. Hustlers. A member of the Heroes tribe, Ben's an ex-Marine and a real good guy. Towards the end, he was clearly the biggest threat and everyone wanted him out, but he kept finding immunity idols, playing 3 in a row. In fact, after one tribal council, he immediately started looking for another one, staying up the whole night till he found it. In the final immunity challenge, he was this close to winning, but the U was upside down. With no idols left in the game, it seemed a sure thing he was going home, but this was the first season with the final 4 fire making challenge. They couldn't vote him out outright. He got to make fire and won. Then there's Wendell from season 36, Ghost Island. Wendell's a huge physical threat, plus a real friendly, likable guy. He teamed up early with Dominic, and these two ran the game for most of the season. Because Dom and Wendell's gameplay was so closely linked, the jury was split on who to vote for, leading to the first ever Survivor tie. Turns out, in case of a tie, the third member of the final three casts the final vote, and it was Laurel, who was much closer to Wendell than Dom, so she gave him the win. And last is Nick from season 37, David vs. Goliath. They had a Goliath tribe of real winners and a David tribe of underdogs. Nick was a David, being a poor Kentucky boy who worked his way to become a lawyer. Nick is extremely friendly. He made 2 personal alliances with almost everyone and gave them all cool names. He's not a huge physical threat, but he won immunity when he needed to and found some key idols. So Nick won Survivor. So there they are, the 20 returning winners for Survivor's epic Season 40 Winners at War. It's going to be awesome, and I'm doing weekly recap videos, so make sure you hit that subscribe button and join in the fun. Who do you think's gonna win? Tell me your predictions down in the comments. I've got a few favorites, but in Survivor, anything can happen.